Good morning to each and everyone. Our lesson for today is about Chapter 5, Practicality and Efficiency. So, if we are going to say practicality and efficiency, it refers to the practicality and efficiency of the assessment test. Okay, so for the overview of the lesson, one type of planning, developing and organizing instructions, and managing student conduct, teachers also have the task of assessing student learning. Time and resources present themselves as issues. For this reason, classroom testing should be teacher-friendly. Test development and grading should be practical and efficient. Practical means, here is the definition of practical. Practical means useful. That is, it can be used to improve classroom instructions and for outcomes assessment purposes. It likewise pertains to judicious use of classroom time. Efficient in this context pertains to development, administration, and grading of assessment with the least waste of resources, and effort. In this chapter, we will cover factors on practicality and efficiency that contributes to high quality assessment. This includes teachers' familiarity with the method, time required, complexity of administration, ease of scoring, ease of interpretation, and cost. This factor would have to be considered and balanced with previously discussed principles. Okay, so let's move on to the extended learning outcomes or the ELO of the lesson, which is the extended learning outcomes of the ELO of the lesson is at the end of this chapter 5, students are expected to describe how teaching can be made more practical and efficient. So for the first topic, we had the familiarity with the method. Teachers must learn the strengths and weaknesses of each method of assessment, how they are developed. Okay, so while it is best that teachers utilizes various method of assessment, it would be a waste of time and resources if the teacher is unfamiliar with the method of assessment. So it is very understandable that it would be a waste of time. Not only time, but also it would be a waste of time, money, and effort if the teacher is not familiar or unfamiliar with the method of assessment. So, the teacher should be, number one, should be a knower of his or her method of assessment in order for the assessment to be successful or reliable. Okay, so the assessment may not satisfactorily realize the learning outcomes. The teacher may commit mistakes in the construct or format of the assessment. Consequently, the result would not be credible. Any inference arising from the assessment result would not be valid or reliable. This may be the problem for some teachers who had been accustomed to pencil and paper tests, as pointed out in Chapter 3. Some learning targets are the best achieved using non-test. A rule of thumb is that simple learning targets require simple assessment. Complex learning target demands complex assessment. So, here is a definition of a rule of thumb. A rule of thumb is a broadly accurate guide of discipline based on experience and practice rather than theory. so let us continue. Here is the factors that should be considered in making an assessment test. Number one is that teachers should be familiar with the assessment. Taking unfamiliar assessment method creates a waste of time and resources. Teachers learn the strengths and weaknesses of each method of assessment. So that was what I am trying to say a while ago. So dapat if a teacher, especially elementary educators, which we are going to educate young learners, we must be familiar with our assessment test or the method of assessment, because it would be a risk of time if we are not familiar with the assessment. Of course, we should also learn the strengths and weaknesses of each method of assessment in order for us to have a good finish or a reliable response from the students. Kaya syempre kung dili ta familiar sa ato ang assessment, dayon wala sab ta kabalo sa mga strength and weaknesses sa ato ang method of assessment, dili jud na siya malikayan nga naagyoy mga kakulian nga mahitabo, no, na ay mga mistakes nga mahitabo, or else ang mas worst is ang response sa mga students is dili accurate sa ato ang gihimo nga assessment test. Okay, so this is what according to Nico and Brookhart 2011, a rule of thumb is that simple learning targets requires simple assessment and complex learning targets demand complex assessment. Magpareha lang ni siya sa katuang curriculum, sa curriculum design, which is the lower the grade level of the pupils or a student, the simpler should be the method of assessment or the assessment test. Kumbaga from simple to complex na siya, gataas ang grade or gataas ang higher ang level is complex po ang method of assessment. So let's move on to the second factor, which is the time required. Okay, so time required. Assessment should allow students readily, and that said, assessment should be scored promptly but with basis too. Time is a matter of choice. So, if we are going to conduct an assessment, time also matters. For example, if we are going to conduct assessment, the point is, if we are going to conduct simple assessment only, then we have to give the accurate time for that assessment, or should I say we should only give a short period of time for a simple assessment, while we should give more time for a complex assessment, because kaning mga complex assessment is dugay gid ni siya mahuman. So ibig sabihin ani is we should give enough time for that certain assessment or activity. Okay, so it may be easier said than done, but a desirable assessment is short yet able to provide valid and reliable results. Considering that the time is a commodity that many full-time teachers do not have, it is best that assessments are quick to develop but not to the point of reckless construction. Assessment should allow students to respond readily but not hastily. Assessment should also be scored promptly but not without basis. It should be noted that time is a matter of choice. It hinges on the teacher's choice of assessment method. For instance, a multiple choice test may take time to prepare, but it can be accomplished by students in a relatively short period. So, di ba, multiple choice is one of the uh, easy to score assessment because sayang lang din siya ansiran, no, kay naman siya choices daan. Now we may involve thinking and comprehension, but not really like parehas sa kuan, not really compared to essays, which is you need a lot of time, a lot of thinking. So muna siya na ang multiple choice, even though dugay siya i-prepare sa mga teachers, kay kailangan pamantaan ni maguna-una og mga accurate nga mga choices in a certain questions nga mo kuan pud siya mo fit pud siya into that certain question. So but even though lisod siya dugay siya i-prepare sa mga teachers, dali ra ni siya ansiran sa mga students. It is desirable assessment if it is short yet able to provide valid and reliable result. Okay? So it is desirable assessment if it is short yet able to provide valid and reliable result. So the three types of assessment, we had the multiple choice, the essay or subjective test, and the performance assessment. In multiple choice used to measure knowledge, outcomes, and various types of learning outcomes. They are most widely used for measuring knowledge, comprehension, and application outcomes. Scoring is easy, objective, and reliable. So, multiple choice is one of the easy to score assessment test. It is used to measure knowledge of the student or the pupils because it also involves comprehension. Kailangan gihapon ka maghuna-huna kay there are certain situations nga in a multiple choice, ang answer or ang choices are just the same. It is just the difference lang nila is just a matter of word, a matter of how the sentence was constructed, and a matter of comprehension, of course. Okay, so next is the essay or the subjective test. The essay or the subjective test may include either short answered questions or long general questions. These exams have no one specific answer per student. They are usually scored on an opinion basis, although there will be a certain fact and understanding expected in the answers. So, ang essay is more on perspectives, no, of the student, or the point of view of the student to a certain question. Okay, so these exams have no one specific answer per student. It doesn't need to have the same answers, no. If we are going to conduct essay, dili na siya kailangan na pare-pareha ang answers. Pero na lang kung ang answer is gi-memorize from Google. But if we are going to say essay, so next is, they are usually scored on an opinion basis, although there will be certain facts and understanding expected in the answer. So this means now na it is just a matter of a keyword, or kuan lang siya, na lang siya one certain word or point ang easy para ma-correct ang imong answer. So nalang gyud siya gipangayo nga isa lang jud siya ka point, even though it doesn't matter if the construction of the sentence is in different ways or lahi pagka-construct ang sentence, as long as the point of the answer is there, then it is considered correct, or it will possibly get a good score. Next is the performance assessment, which is also known as the alternative or authentic assessment. It is also it is designed to assess the ability of a student to perform correctly in a simulated situation. So, performance assessment refers to mga actual performances, like for example oral recitations, mga projects, mga like for example kanang mga dancing, mga what else, role playing, mga ana. So performance assessment is also costly. It is costly, but not all the time, because oral assessment is not costly. Dili pareha sa uban nga performance assessment, such as mga dancing nga mag-need siya og mga costume, mga kuan. So performance assessment there is designed to assess the ability of the student to perform correctly in a simulated situation. So that is when you conduct performance assessment, kanang mga actual nga mga test, like for example the oral recitation test. Okay, next is the ease of administration. The assessment should be easy to administer. So if we are going to say easy to administer, ibig sabihin is it should be easy to understand, or it should be simple. It should be simple to understand, especially if we are future young educators. We are going to educate young children, so we must give instructions which are easy to understand, like for example yung mga simple lang na mga instructions, para hindi maging ganito yung mangyari, no? There is a situation here that the teacher gave an instruction to his or her pupils. Here's the instruction: match items in column A with the correct answers on column B. Write the letter of your answer on the space provided before each number. Capital letters only and no erasure. So what have you observed to the instruction? Diba? It is very long. Taas kayo, very complicated ang instruction. So what would be the result? Of course, ang mga pupils, yun ang balik-balikon. Match A and B, ma'am. Ayan po rin ang uban niya. Ma'am, are we going to underline it or write the correct answers or write the letters, ma'am? So, ibig sabihin, the pupils are asking, so ibig sabihin, they did not understand the direction. Napaingon dire, yes, ma'am, yes, erasure. O, diba? Okay tayo. So, nahimo naman gid ni sometimes, nahimo naman gid ni siyang culture, no, sa mga students nga aghuman og hatag sa teacher og instruction is balikon pa gyud, mangutana pa gyud, like for example, get 1/4 ma'am, ana pa gyud, get 1/2 lengthwise ma'am, ana pa gyud. So culture na siya sa mga student, no, pero we as young educators or future young educators, we must give simple instructions which is very easy to understand for the students. Okay, so here it is. Instructions must be clear and complete. And especially, it must be simple. So, very understandable. Okay. Instructions that are vague will confuse the student and consequently provide incorrect response. So, ano to siya, no? That's what I am trying to say a while ago nga. Kung vague ang instruction, very long, very complicated, there is a tendency nga dili gid siya masabtan sa mga pupils or sa mga students. So, uh, in response, in what do we call this, because of that instructions which is dili siya masabtan, there is a possibility nga ang mga student is magkaroon og incorrect response. So dili mao ang ilahang kuan, ang ilahang ma-answer because they did not understand the direction or the assessment because it is very complicated or very vague. Okay, so students' effort are futile if directions are not expressed directly and explicitly. So sayang jud kayo ang mga effort sa mga students og answer if ang ilaha di ang gi-answeran kay abi nila correct unya mali di ay because they did not understand the direction. Okay, the ease of scoring. So let's move on to the ease of scoring. These selected response formats are the easiest to score: the multiple choice, the true or false, and the matching type. We can say that they are the easiest to score because kung unsa ang mga scores sa mga student nga na attain is mao pod ang ilahang what I mean is kung unsa ang pila ang ilahang check sa isa ka assessment test, mao po to ang ilahang score. So easy lang siya to score. Next, the difficult to score. So the difficult to score assessment are the extended response essay, the performance assessment, for example, oral presentation and research paper. So, like for example, the extended response essay. So, essay siya. So, it is not easy to score an essay. We have to consider the comprehension, the way how the student or the pupils deliver or construct his or her sentences in an essay. It also the same with the performance assessment, which is the oral presentation, the research, and the research paper. So in oral presentation, di ba, sometimes maka-oral presentation ta, makatindog lang tag, maka-answer lang ta, correct na, okay na. But it doesn't mean na nag-oral ta is dako ato ang score dito sa ato ang oral answer. So it is up to the teacher to comprehend sa answer sa constructed sentence sa isa ka estudyante nga nag-oral. So difficult gid siya no to score kay mag-base man ta sa how the sentence was constructed, the comprehension, and many other factors. So objectivity is also an issue. And then, selected response tests are objectively marked because each item has one correct or best answer. This contributes the reliability of the test. Performance assessments, however, make use of rubrics. While this facilitates scoring, Scoring, care must be observed in rating to ensure objectivity, according to Macmillan, 2007. Suggests that for performance assessment, it is more practical to use rating scales and checklists rather than writing extended individualized evaluation. Okay, so objectivity is also an issue. Performance assessment make use of rubrics. Suggest the Macmillan um wait. Performance assessment make use of rubrics. So di ba like for example sa ato ang modules na natay ginabasihan nga kaning rubrics, which is dito mag-base as kuan guide na pud to siya the rubrics will also use as guide for the teachers as well as the students or the pupils on how they are going to um, have an idea in constructing their sentences, their answers, their essays, and whatsoever. So, ang rubrics, it will be the guide uh, on the scoring or the performance assessment. Okay, so according to Macmillan 2007, he suggested that for performance assessment, it is more practical to use rating scales and checklists rather than writing extended individualized evaluation. So let's move on to the ease of interpretation. Okay. So, interpretation. Okay, so according to the picture, what have you observed or what have you understood about the picture? So it says that objective tests are easiest to interpret. There is a standard matching the score with the level of proficiency. So, mano ni siya, no, katong matching the score with the level of proficiency. Muna po ni siya, it also applies to the essay and dito sa mga research paper, katong mga assessment nga hard to score, to give score. So, um, we have to match the score with the level of proficiency. So, kung dili ra pud kaayo tantong accurate ang answer, so expected na nga mobo gid ang score. Okay, so let's continue. Use of interpretation. Sometimes students are given a score that reflects their knowledge, skills, and performance. However, this is meaningless if such score is not interpreted. Objective tests are the easiest to interpret. By establishing a standard, the teacher is able to determine right away if a student passed the test. So, na yung mga standards no nga gina-implement in um, interpreting a test. Like for example, kanang maingon ta og we are going to test the level of the knowledge of a certain student. So, ang mga standard for example is kanang naay passing score. Like for example, 60%. So, if ever ang student or ang pupils nakakuha og 60% above, ibig sabihin, they had the knowledge, they had the skills regarding their performance in a certain assessment test. So, kung wala pod sila nakapasar or wala sila nakakuha sa passing score sa standard, it also means na wala sila nakasabot sa lesson. Okay, so by matching the score with the level of proficiency, teachers can determine if the student has reached mastery or not. In performance tasks, rubrics are prepared to objectively and expeditiously rate students' actual performance or product. It reduces the time spent in grading because teachers refers to the descriptors and performance level in the rubric without the need to write long comments. Nonetheless, The rubric would have to be shared with the students so that they understand the meaning of the scores or grades given to them. So this is what I am trying to say a while ago. The rubrics are used as guide by the teachers as well as the student para ma-understand nila or makabalo sila kung asa sila dapat mo kung saan para ilang answers. For example, dapat ay sa mo yung answers or accurate sa criteria in order for you to gain a good score. What happened? Okay, so let's continue to this is the rubrics. Rubrics is presented in performance tasks. So this is the example. Sections, the knowledge, graphics, mechanics, eye contact, or wait lang. Okay, so this is the oral presentation rubrics, no? Ngayon na eye contact, mga graphics, mechanics, like that. So amo ni siya ang basihan. This is the basis in oral presentation. Dapat nakaingon ani. So if ano sa graphics, the highest score if the student's graphic explained and reinforced screen text and presentation, so have a perfect score of 4 points. Okay, so understandable naman ni siya, no? Let's move on to the cost. Okay, the cost will be the last topic of my report. So I'm going to say cost. Diba, we have understood that cost involves money. Okay, so classroom tests are generally inexpensive. Performance tasks are not costly. Written reports and panel discussion. Kani sila kani mga written reports. Although naagya po ni siya cost, pero kay naman siya mga gamit gihapon, mga resources like for example paper, mga kuan, pero dili lang siya kaayo costly. So students need to pay for some resources. So, di ba? O pay, money gihapon involved. Use of second hand and recycled materials, teachers remedy. Excessive testing trains students how to take tests but inadequately to a productive adult life. So in making an assessment test, we are also dapat as a future educator or young educator, we must consider being resourceful. Kay what if, di ba? We are not always in a good condition when it comes to financial, because as we all know, we all have our needs. So therefore, we must be so if the surroundings which makes of them or any other mga ideas of para makatipid. So for example of that are not considered are written and oral reports. So written and oral reports dili ay sila because okay, so let's move on. So open-ended assessments, essay exams, and performance tasks are more expensive to score but support more ambitious teaching and learning according to Darling, Hammond, and Adamson. Must choose economic assessment. So dapat gid no kay kuan no kaning resourcefulness is the key. Regarding the cost of the assessment, resourcefulness is always the key. So we can identify mga inexpensive or uncostly nga mga kuana mga unsa ni mga assessment. Uncostly includes or inexpensive includes oral recitation, mga written paperworks, mga ingon ana. So ang mga costly pod, ang mga costly are open-ended assessment, essay exams, and performance tasks are more expensive to score. Like for example, performance task no kay kinahanglan mag-involve man ng mga activities no, mga maghimo kag mga visual aids, so gasto jud ka ana, like for example mga projects pod, mga ingon ana, so it is costly. So ana siya ang mga kuan, mga expensive mga performance tasks including projects, mga visual aids, ngayon mga activities like for example mga physical activities, di ba? Apil man na sa performance task. So, mag-need ka na, for example, dancing or drama, mag-need ka ng mga costume, mga unsa-unsa pa. So, mag-cost yun na siya. Mugasto jud ka ana. So, muna siya ang mga kuan, maka-elaborate raman mo sa mga costly o mga dili costly nga mga uh, um, part or factors of assessment. Okay? So, economy should be thought in a long run and unreliable. Less expensive test may eventually cost more further assessment. So, in elementary or in um, educating young students or being a elementary teacher, kasagaran ginagamit is kanang mga uncostly, dili pa man kaita mga kuan anang mga gasto kayo nga mga kung ano mga assessment. Sagaran is mga written lang man, mga test paper, mga oral na ang mga test paper, oral recitation. So dili ra kaayo uncostly ra kaayo, not like the high school. Mga high school kay mag-involve naman na sila og mga performance tasks, mga dancing, mga drama. So mag-involve gid na sila og great cost. Okay, so move on to the next. High quality assessment focused on deep learning according to Darling Hammond and Adamson 2013. So ang high quality assessment dili siya mag-base sa cost, no? Dili siya mag-base sa gasto nato. We can still provide high quality assessment without having dako kayo nga gasto. So ang high quality assessment daw focuses on the deep learning. Kinahanglan as long as maka-learn ang mga students, makadaghan sila ma-acquire nga knowledge gikan sa ato ang test, gikan sa ato ang gi-impart sa ilaha nga mga test, mga assessment, it is considered high quality assessment. Okay, so schools must support performance assessment. Okay, dapat ang school gid mag-support gid og mga performance assessment, no? Dili kay mag-conduct lang ta og magklase lang ta, makaklase lang ta sa mga student, okay na. So we must be as a student centered or the learner centered educators. We must imply or we must run the advocate that schools must support performance assessment. Okay, fine.